Welcome to Nice Ashes. I'm Mike.
And I'm Nate. What are we smoking, Mike?
We are smoking, quite predictably, a Rocky Patel, The Edge, Corojo Fuma.
The Fuma! Now, this is one, we like the Corojo so much, The Edge, the real one. This one's real too. They all exist. But we liked it so much that if this one is even close to as good, it'd be hard to recommend the full-blown one. What's the price difference between these two, Mike? Do you know?
Yes, I do know. So you can find an Edge Corojo at your local cigar shop for around $10. Online, you can get them for $5 on sale. You can get a Corojo Fuma all day long for $45 for $20. So now you're talking $2 and change all day. Not on sale, regular price.
Wow.
On sale, you can get them for less than $2 a stick. Hard to say no to that price.
Yeah, indeed. That's a hell of a price.
And for those wondering, I have smoked this cigar. This is actually a regular in my rotation when I play board games. I like to smoke a Fuma and have a drink or two and roll dice.
Nice. Mike, you're going to have to help me. I don't know if it's because we just came off the regular Edge Corojo. I don't think the cap tastes as spicy.
I didn't get the spice on the cap like you did, but my taste buds are different than yours. Yeah, I didn't get it on the taste of the cap.
Okay. Well, maybe not a concern then. Just thoughts for people. Well, let's light this thing up. I sure am curious as to what we're talking about. Is it History of the Scattergun Part 2?
I believe it is. I was going to make a joke, but you cut me to the punch. And we're not smoking a punch, we're smoking an edge.
That's right.
So, we're on the cutting edge of technology here. Jokes the show. Jokes the show. Terrible puns. We're punny people. What are you matching it with today?
Oh, well, I knew somehow, some way, that we were going to be smoking the Rocky Patel Corojo The Edge, followed by the Rocky Patel Corojo The Fuma. They don't call it the Fuma, but they should. So I am also pairing this one with a Montucky cold snack lager, which I had for the last episode, because I didn't want to change my pairing between the two cigars, because changing the pairing might change my perception of the cigar, so I wanted to keep it as equal as possible. What are you pairing yours with, Mike?
I have water, also the remainder of my glass of Whistler, and when that is gone, which I surely will finish it, I have some Honor Brand. So I'm going to have a little drama Honor Brand, and we'll be good to go. For those in the Minnesota region, Honor Brand is blended by Emily Vickery in Duluth, which if you're ever in Duluth at the Canal Park, I highly recommend stopping there. They have great whiskeys, and they sell it in many local liquor stores if they have a high-end whiskey available.
I have not heard of that, so that is very interesting.
You've had it. You've had it at my house, because we had it as a wedding gift, believe it or not. And you have tried it, and you liked it. It's very caramely and sweet and lovely. Very traditional American blend.
Nice.
So, yeah. I actually picked up, we were in Duluth Friday, and we picked up a bottle of rye. And I haven't opened the bottle yet. I took a sampler, and that is some dark and spicy stuff, if I remember correctly, with a lot of raisin. So I'm excited for that as well, which I'm sure I'll have on the show at some point. But
yes.
We took a little trip after work to Duluth, and went to Canal Park and did all the Canal Park stuff. And it was lovely. Went to Grandma's, as everybody should. Didn't go to the Anchor Bar, which we normally go to. What are your first impressions, Nate?
Oh, I'm like one puff in.
Not as spicy.
Yeah, part of me wants to say it's a little less spicy. It's a little lighter than the full-blown.
It's spicy, but it's not that kick-in-the-face spicy. It's not the same. Still good, but it's not the same.
It's not the same. It's a little different. I would agree. Maybe it's just the first few puffs. Maybe it'll be as spicy throughout. It's tough to say.
Did you do a single V cut?
Yeah, I did a single V on this one, just like I did the last one. Like I said, I'm trying to keep both smokes as similar as possible for this, because we're recording them actually one right after the other. And then, of course, they'll be released a week apart, but we're doing them back to back. So it's a true full-on side-by-side comparison. And I would agree, this one's a little less spicy. I think it's just a little bit lighter. It's not as forward as the other one was. But again, we're a couple puffs in, so.
I agree. It could be affected by the fact that this is our third cigar of the evening also.
No, never.
Never too many cigars as we hack our lungs out tomorrow morning.
Well, if we're hacking our lungs out, we're smoking them wrong.
Right. Well, sometimes if I have a fan set up, and sometimes if I don't get the smoke towards the fan, the room will get a little too smoky.
Okay. So, you know what I went and got, Mike? I got an air purifier for my studio. And it's supposed to run all the time. And it's not going to fix, 3 cigars worth of smoke, especially if we have a guest, which we might next episode. But it has, I think, helped the overall kind of lingering smell of cigars in the space. So there's that.
Well, that's awesome. So let's start off the episode. We ended the last one with Nate's rage about the 36 gauge, otherwise known as the 410 bore. And some of the things we're going to talk about are going to be remedial, because we inevitably spoke about these before.
And briefly. I mean, not briefly. In depth, but I had questions and you said, wait till the next episode. And I was happy to do that. I'm not happy about the 410, 36, 45. But you can't have everything in life, right, Mike?
You cannot, unless you're Bill Gates. And even he couldn't keep his wife happy. So there we go.
Yes, and couldn't keep his name off the Epstein Island list. So, what do you do?
That is my favorite Trump quote of recent times. I was lucky enough to have never gone. It's totally honest. I love it. Might be shitbag answer, but it's an honest one.
Yeah.
Yep, it's great. So, we're going to begin. Action types. We talked about this. So we have a break open action. And currently, in production today, you can get single, side-by-side, over and under, and the rare, but I have shot it myself, tri-barrel break actions shotgun. Yeah. So the benefit to having 2 barrels, or 3, is that you can have more than one choke. And we're going to talk about chokes later. And we'll, at that time, talk about the benefits to having more than one choke on a gun. As an aside, having held and shot a 3-barreled shotgun, they're not as heavy as you would think. You would think that they'd be really heavy, and they are not. They are pretty much a normal weight, which is kind of crazy. The guy I know who shoots one is like 80 years old, and it's perfectly fine. And he walks with it just the same as any other gun. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the tri-barrel?
I may have seen it online as maybe, like, I feel like a meme maybe somewhere back in the day when guns were part of meme culture, which they're kind of not anymore, but except maybe the AR-15. But I don't think, I've never seen one in person unless it was in some kind of, I've been to a few plains museums or Western type museums. So if they had one in there, I might have seen one, but I've certainly never held or shot one.
Sure. Chiappa makes it. They also make the revolver that has a barrel coming out the bottom of the cylinder instead of the top.
Oh, so, that's weird.
Yeah, they kind of make goofy guns. Goofy in design by comparison to other companies, but they're fine firearms. So anyway.
How does the aiming work on a revolver that has a barrel nut at the top?
So they have a rail. There's a rail. And then you aim down the rail the same as you would off of the barrel with a comb.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah. And then the force, I've never shot the revolver with the barrel on the bottom, but I guess the force is more back, so there's less flipping. So you can get a larger larger cartridge and control the barrel better. That's the design intent. Yeah, it does. Next style, which is still in production, lever actions. Not very common, but there are at least 2 companies, to my awareness, that still make a lever-action shotgun, Henry and Chiappa. And they're both fine firearms. The Henrys are made in the United States. They're $1,000 a piece, and the Chiappas are around the same. Okay. So you can still find yourself one. I believe they make them in smoothbore and rifled.
The Henrys, that's a quintessential cowboy rifle. Not the shotgun, but the rifle. They make the octagonal-barreled lever-action rifles.
Yes.
that you see in a lot of John Wayne films and other Western films.
Yep.
And my dad and or grandfather had one at one point. I don't know if he still does, but I've shot the octagonal barreled rifle lever action, and that was a treat. It was fun.
Oh,
lever
yeah.
actions are fun.
Henry also makes the silver and golden boy with all the custom engraving. So if you ever go to a
sure.
auction or an event and they have the custom gun for that particular event, it'll be a Henry with custom engraving.
Mm.
And they're nice. I have owned one in the past, but I do not currently own one.
What caused you to not own one?
I made a trade for a shotgun.
Well, that's good. I mean, my question was kind of like, was there something about the Henry you didn't like? Or, if it's a trade, there was something you wanted more. So that makes sense.
I bought a collectible one with custom engraving that was very rare. And I knew a guy who wanted it. And I traded it for a brother to a shotgun I already owned.
Okay.
So I own a Versamax in a 26-inch barrel and a Versamax with a 28-inch barrel, which are both gas-operated shotguns. The 28-inch is for goose, and the 26 is for upland, which can also be used for goose. But it's lighter, and it swings better, carries better. It's a better upland firearm, and I love the Versamax. I think it's a great gun. No longer in production, but man, they were good while they were made. For sure. The for those listening who care, not the cheap Versamax, the high-grade Versamax is Remington is notorious for making different grades of firearm with the same actions. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why they, in my opinion, lost prestige and market, is because they have the Wingmaster down to the Express. And they look kind of the same, but they're not the same.
Okay, yeah.
So you've seen my Wingmaster. It's got engraving on it. It's got the gold trigger. It's got real high-grade walnut. Very beautiful gun. And it's fundamentally the same gun as the cheap plastic thing that you can get for $150 at the used store, Yeah. Yeah, they just hurt their prestige, in my opinion. And we can talk about that later when we talk about tactical firearms. But we also have now the bolt-action shotgun, which is very common in Wisconsin and in parts of Minnesota because they are deer hunting shotgun rifles. Okay, that have a bolt-action. You've seen the bolt-action shotguns, I'm sure.
No, I've never seen a bolt-action shotgun. I would be very interested. My Browning 30-06 is a bolt-action, and I enjoy bolt-actions quite a bit.
Yes. Yeah, and they're perfectly functional for what they are, which is deer hunting only in zones where rifles are banned. And they're kind of a cheater weapon because you can shoot 200 plus yards with them accurately.
Yep.
Because they're a purpose-built tool for that.
Well, and from what I've heard is, and this is likely true, but what I've heard is for firearms, the fewer moving parts, the more accurate it is. So a semi-auto has more moving parts than a pump. A pump has more moving parts than a lever action. Like the lever action, outside of a single shot, the lever action has the fewest number of moving parts of the different styles of guns, I believe.
Yeah. A lever and a bolt are very similar as far as that. But.
Well, yeah. In terms of common.
Yeah. But. Absolutely. So then we go to a pump action, which we've talked about, and everybody's seen a pump action shotgun. They're the most common style. They're very ubiquitous and cheap to make. The design is over 100 years old.
Yep.
Very easy to maintain. You almost don't even have to clean them other than for rust.
Yep.
Then we have semi-automatics, which are gas and recoil operated, and they have rifles in semi-automatic. All these actions have both rifle and shotgun equivalents.
Yes.
And then we go into the automatic firearms, which are illegals for civilians to own in the United States unless they were produced before 1934, I want to say, depending on the model. And they have gas and recoil operations for that. Now, something that is made, but is very rare, and is usually a pistol, is the revolver shotgun. And they used to make revolver shotguns that were long guns. And they might make one now, but it would be a collector's item. A more revolver pistols that will shoot shotgun shells.
Yep.
Okay. Now we get into shotgun shell lengths. The standard length of a shotgun shell chamber is 2 3/4 inches. that is not true now. That was the standard chamber in the 70s. Now the standard chamber is 3-inch.
Yep.
Pretty much universally. They also make 3.5 in 12, 20, and 10. And those are largely considered waterfowl guns, but the 3.5 is becoming more and more common. It all depends, because a recoil-operated semi-automatic firearm usually has to be calibrated to the length of shell that you're shooting. So if you have a recoil gun that's shooting 3.5, it's going to have issues cycling at 2 3/4, right? And that's where gas comes in, because it's all based on the blowback from the shell. So if you're shooting a shell with less payload, it's going to have an issue cycling. Pump action solves that, obviously.
Yep.
For obvious reasons. And you can safely shoot a shorter shell from a longer chamber because the shotgun shell folds out when the load leaves, and the load is in a shot cup. And the shot cup is basically a plastic or paper wad that keeps all the shot together until well after outside of the barrel, so it won't damage the insides. Now, there is a chamber of 2.5. Have you ever heard of this?
A 2.5-inch chambered shotgun?
Yes, 2.5 instead of 2.75.
Because usually it's 2 3/4, and nowadays the standard is 3, right?
Yep. Yes.
No, I can't say I've heard of a 2.5-inch chambered one.
So, for very specific applications, they make a 2.5-inch chambered shotgun. And I have seen these in use. I've seen them with my eyes, but I have never used one.
Okay.
In heavy industrial applications, think coal burning ovens. They get a cake on the inside, and they will shoot with a shotgun the cake, and the cake will fall down off the inside of the incinerator onto the ground, and they make a specialty 2.5-inch shotgun shell in a 2.5-inch chambered shotgun, and they'll shoot all of the cake down, and then they'll sweep it out.
Okay.
So, yeah, very specialized, and I've seen them. It's pretty cool. They look just like a pump-action shotgun. One I looked at was made by Remington.
Okay.
And it's extremely rare. The shells that I saw had 12 shot pellets, which are way too small to use for hunting.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool, I think.
So, Mike,
yeah,
that's a specialty shotgun. I have another instance of a shotgun, and this was only from a movie, so it may or may not be true. But do you remember in the original Jurassic Park?
Yes.
When they shoot the shotgun shell down into the ground to get the image of the skeleton beneath the ground?
Yes.
Were they shooting, and this is maybe an archaeological question and not a shotgun question, but I remember they popped the shell out of that thing that looked just like a shotgun shell, and they fired it, but I don't know if it actually had shot in it or what was in there, so I don't know if it was truly like a shotgun shell.
The concept, if I remember correctly, was that they had a sensor, and they used a sensor inside of a shotgun shell, and they shot it into the earth. And I don't know, you would think that it would just crush on impact.
Yeah,
but I don't know if that's real or not. Yeah, one would think.
I don't know.
No idea.
I mean, it might be just movie magic or something, or based off of loosely something that archaeologists use. I've never looked it up. I just didn't know if that was part of your research, since you're talking about specialty rounds.
I didn't. I didn't even do the research for the specialty rounds because I knew it existed from personal experience.
Yeah. Well, you did real life research. It's just like the cast of Harry Potter. They did the research for going to a British wizarding school by growing up in Britain.
Oh my God. Now, outside of the rare specialty 2.5, 2 3/4 is the standard length for shotgun shells. And these come in two general groups, which are going to be low brass and high brass. Low brass varieties usually have weak payloads. Think skeet shooting, some hunting, but it's mostly going to be for clay pigeon shooting and things like that. Okay. The high brass rounds, because they have more brass and less plastic, you can put more powder in it, so you can get a faster, more powerful round, right? So when I pick hunting ammunition, I shoot high brass unless I'm going to be going dove hunting or something like that, where a 12 gauge is usually too much anyway, so you don't really need all that extra powder and weight. See what I'm saying?
Well, and Mike,
Yeah.
there are specific waterfowl regulations for shotgun use.
We are going to get into that.
Okay. So I have another question that might throw you off, but it might not. You might have done this research in anticipation of a question I might ask you.
All right.
And I don't know anything. I don't know much about this. But the British, I believe, love to go fox hunting. Do they use shotgun to go fox hunting?
They typically use dogs, and the dogs chase them. And I believe the dogs are the ones that catch the fox.
Oh, okay.
And from what I understand, and my knowledge is limited to that of an American, they don't even do real fox hunting anymore. They have a gamekeeper go around and create scent and plant a false fox, and then they do the fox hunt with the horses and they chase the dogs, and they're not actually hunting real foxes anymore. But it's my understanding that the dogs actually caught the fox.
Stop doing that and just become horse jockeys and race on the track.
Well, it's about running and jumping through trees and enjoying the outdoors and tradition, and there's a lot of reasons for it.
Sure, yeah. Are you about halfway through your cigar, Mike?
No, I would say 2/3. Okay. Are you halfway?
Give or take. I feel like I'm more than 2/3, but less than half.
Okay. Mine's getting spicier. It is not as spicy as the standard Corojo, but
Mine is
spicy.
Getting spicier, but it's not. It doesn't have the same nicotine punch, I feel.
I get a lot of nicotine in my mouth. We might have been, what would it be, acclimated to it, potentially. But you might be right, too, because I'm not getting that, body buzz from it.
Well, yeah, I remember at this point in the other one, I had a significant buzz going in my head. And since we stopped smoking the last one, the buzz has subsided, and it hasn't really picked back up with this one. But I don't know that I've kind of reached a buzz nirvana either. You know what I mean? So
yes. Yeah, this one's getting stronger.
That's kind of the risk of smoking both of them back to back and not taking a pause or a break in between, is I could still be just kind of buzzing from the other one, and this one is just sustaining me. It's not adding anything to it. So I don't know. I feel like if I would have smoked two Corojos, the edge ones back to back, I'd be, I don't know where I would be, but this one seems a little less potent all around with spice and nicotine content.
I would agree with that. It's the same idea,
yes,
but not as strong, because the other one was very strong. That was a kick in the mouth. This is manageable.
100%.
This is manageable. Yes.
Well, the other one's manageable too, but this one, if you wanted to, and we're not doing end of cigar thoughts, but my initial thought, at least where we are with this one, is if you wanted to test out if maybe the Corojo Edge was right for you, this would be a good kind of, if you enjoy this one but wished it was stronger and wished it would punch you in the face, then the Edge would be right for you. So
I agree, because this is the same but less so.
Yeah,
less so.
Yeah, not hugely less so, but I mean, I feel like the taste and the flavor is very similar, but the potency is somehow less.
Yes, I would agree with that. So as mentioned,
shotgun.
Yep, shotgun. So the 2 3/4 is the standard size for all of the shotguns, regardless of gauge. So you get 2 3/4 410. You get 2 3/4.
You mean 36?
10 gauge. Yeah, I mean 36. I mean 36. So now we go up to a larger size, 3-inch. Now a 3-inch chamber is the standard chamber now for all 12 and 20 gauge shotguns. They no longer make 2 3/4-inch chambered 12 and 20s. I'm sure they do, but it's not common. Where I have a 2 3/4-inch. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. I have to get my word count in, or else people don't think I'm here. No, but the 3-inch chamber will accept both the 2 3/4 and the 3.5-inch in most cases.
Yes, in all cases.
Okay.
In all cases. Okay. Yeah, a 3-inch chamber will shoot a 2 3/4 with no issue whatsoever. Yep. So that's why they make a 3-inch chamber standard in all upland firearms now.
I will say, though, and this is from experience, because I did a significant amount of pheasant hunting and grouse hunting in my hunting years, and up till, I don't know, maybe 12 years ago, The 3-inch, so I have a Remington 870 20 gauge. Depending on the brand of shotgun shell you get, if you get a cheaper brand, what I found of a 3.5-inch to put in your 3-inch chamber, it will cause jamming with your pump. But if you get like the Remington or the Winchester, generally that's fine. But if you get one of the other brands that is maybe less expensive than those two brands, you can get into some issues because they put maybe a little bit extra plastic down where it turns into the butthole. You know what I mean? At the end of it, where all the stuff shoots out. And so it gets a little extra long when you try and eject it, and it kind of catches in your receiver. But
so I know about this issue, and Remingtons have this particularly. There is a clasp that grabs the metal lip on the back of the shotgun shell and pulls it out. So if you get a Winchester, a Remington, a Federal, those are very high quality shells, and they will get extracted because the extractor comes in, it pulls the metal, it goes. If you get something cheap, some Brazilian made junk, a promo load, a Fiocchi's better now, but then it was cheaper. The metal that they use on the lip is too weak, and the extractor will pull through the metal, and it won't pull out. So it's less to do with the length of the shell and more to do with the quality of the metal that they use on the shell itself.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like I only noticed it with the longer load, though, the 3.5, but...
Possibly. And that becomes... You're maxing out the size of your gun, right? So,
yeah, I mean, if you have an issue with your metal and you have the 3-inch, which is standard, there's plenty of clearance. Even if you don't get a 100% solid grip, it can still eject. But if you have the 3.5 and let's say the clearance is too tight, it won't have the force with the weak metal to flip it out of the chamber, perhaps.
Yes. Also, you have an 870 Express, and those guns are notorious for having weak extractors. So if you get the extractor that is made for a Wingmaster and install it in your Express, you'll get rid of a lot of the issues. That's part of Remington's problem, was that the Expresses were the same design as a Wingmaster, but the parts in the Wingmaster are significantly better, and they're replaceable. So you can take the inside parts of an Express and replace it with the parts from a Wingmaster. So if you get a Wingmaster extractor, you'll eliminate that issue as well. And that's a pretty common fix, if you will, for the 3.5-inch 12 gauges for the Expresses, because those are typically the waterfall guns, is you get rid of the extractor, you put in the extractor for a Wingmaster, and then now you have yourself a gun that'll fire 3.5-inch shells all day long.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
We can talk off air.
Absolutely.
That would be an upgrade I would love to do on mine.
Yep. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So anyway, 3-inch shells, they come in 10, 20, and 12, obviously. And these are all high brass hunting loads. They don't sell 3-inch shells for non-hunting loads. And I shoot some 3-inch. I will shoot 3-inch steel when it comes to pheasant hunting, and we'll talk about steel shot later. I don't shoot a lot of 3-inch other than ducks and pheasant. But they definitely serve a purpose if you have to use non-toxic shot.
Yes.
And there we go. Now we get into the 3.5-inch chamber, which is also a shell size. And that is only the 10, the 12, and the 20. And this is for waterfowl use in the case of the 10 and the 12. And then with the 20... With a 3.5-inch chamber, you can essentially shoot a 12-gauge round in your 20-gauge gun and get 12-gauge performance. So they make 3.5-inch shells for 20s that you can shoot at late season pheasant, where you need extra powder, you need extra pellet weight. So you can. That's why the 16 was completely eliminated from the market, because a 12-gauge or a 20-gauge can literally shoot a more powerful round than you can find for a 16. You can shoot a 12-gauge round, essentially, out of a 20. It's not as popular now as it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because the 12s, you can get a 12-gauge gun that's the same size as a 20. So why not just get a 12-gauge and call it good? You know, and that's where we're getting as a market in the United States, is that the 12 is just, unless you are small-framed or are injured or are elderly, it makes sense just to shoot a 12 all the time.
Yeah.
It's even hard
The 12
now.
is crazy versatile.
Mm-hmm.
And the 20 has become more versatile than it was maybe even when I was a child. But, when my brothers and I started out hunting, we all got 12 gauges. 20. We all got 20 gauges.
Right.
Because it was a gun that could grow with you. You could still shoot it as an adult, and you can still hit the same shots some other adult with a 12 gauge could hit, depending on your loads and everything. So
yeah, and I have a adult 20 gauge that I shoot, and I also have a youth 20 gauge that is my wife's, and they're great guns. I can't even shoulder her gun. It's way too small. I would have to get a new stock. If I bought a brand new stock and put it on, then I could shoot it. And she's got a Remington Express. That's a waterfowl gun, and it's a wonderful gun. It shoots great. And I thought about getting a stock for it and shooting it, but there's really no purpose because I also have a 6 1/4 pound 12 gauge that does exactly the same thing that I would get from a 20.
Yeah.
So,
and you said you also have an adult 20 gauge.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife can't shoot because she's not an adult. So
right. It's too big for her. That's why I got her a smaller gun.
Yeah,
I actually won it. I won it, and that happened to work out that way. But it's
to fill the need.
Yeah, to fill the need. To fill out my gun safe. Because I have.
Well, I mean, it's similar to cigars, right? Like, not every gauge or gun is right for every person. So find the one that's right for you.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's the cool thing is, you've got the 12 and the 20. I think that was the dilemma that my dad had with us when we were younger is, does he get a 410 knowing that the 410 just simply won't be able to do the same things that a 20 would do? And I think the 410 is kind of a very niche gun, even though it's the third most popular shotgun, right? But it's still you can't do the same things with the 410 you can do with the 20. So there's really no reason to not get a 20 because you can always get the longer barrel for the 20 and the longer stock for the 20. So
right, especially if you get a Mossberg 500, a Remington 870, a BPS.
Yeah.
These guns are moddable, and they sell very good parts from the manufacturer or aftermarket, and you can make it whatever you want. And you can adjust the length of pull and the drop and everything.
Yeah, and I've never gotten any grief for using a 20. Like that's the only shotgun I have. Nobody's ever like, oh, look at him shooting a 20. He's like not a true shooter or something. Like nobody cares.
No. Why would anybody care?
So why would anybody care? I mean,
why would anybody care? Part of my hunting group, one of the guys had shoulder surgery on his left arm, so he couldn't hold the gun very well. So he got himself a 20, a light 20 that he could hold one-armed, basically. Didn't need a lot of help from his left hand to hold it. And he hunted for 2 seasons with a 20, which is great. I mean, he shot just as many birds, just a lighter, more capable gun for his needs at that time, And that's great. Get out there and do the thing, right? That's what it's all about, in my opinion.
Yep.
Shocking, I know, for all the listeners out there. So these chamber sizes, this is the explanation of why the 12 and the 20 are now the guns. Because you can get these chambered, small or large, and you can get different payloads, which we'll talk about later. And it just makes it pointless to have anything else from a utilitarian standpoint. So, like a 28 gauge is a collector's gun. That is a shooter's gun. That is not a standard gun that somebody is going to buy off the shelf. That is a specific group that is going to get that.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that. And I know I hunt with a guy that shoots 28, like I say, and he's damn good. Yep. That's why he does it.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to move on to barrel length. So, the minimum legal barrel length in the United States is 18 inches. And this was put in place as a response to Prohibition. Because people were sawing off shotguns, usually break actions, and using them to commit crimes. And that is the famous shotgun pistol that you see in movies, which was a real thing. And police
and they would put pistol grips on it, too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Police were getting, of course, murdered with shotgun pistols.
Hey, They were getting unalived, Mike.
Yeah, they were getting unalived. And, of course, they made them illegal because it's a very dangerous, that's a very effective short-range weapon. So
Yes.
That's how Ruby Ridge got started. He sawed a shotgun barrel to 16 inches instead of 18. And, it's a big deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. My dad had a semi-auto 12-gauge shotgun with a below the legal limit barrel and pistol grips. And it was kind of a bitch to shoot, but it was legal because the length of the barrel was somehow grandfathered in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was.
Yeah,
it
if
was
you have a
done
gun that was manufactured before
beforehand.
1934, it's legal. Yeah, it's legal.
But he ended up, unfortunately, selling it, and that would have been one that I would have really liked to have kept or, bought from him, but
right.
It's one of those ones you don't really shoot a whole lot because it's not terribly fun to shoot because it's a fucking 12 gauge sawed off and pistol grips, but
it'd be
whatever.
Interesting to talk to your dad about it. I wonder if he sold it because he didn't want to get a class 3 weapons license. So any of those old guns that
Could be
are
possible.
Pre-prohibition requires a class 3 firearms license, which is not impossible to get. Obviously, I know quite a few guys that do have class 3 firearms licenses, but it's a lot of bullshit and paperwork. And if it's not something that you really want to keep, is it really worth the money and time to get the license and maintain it?
I honestly don't think it was a pre-prohibition type of gun. You know what I mean? I think there was some other reason he said it was legal, and I don't know if that was true or not. But,
sure.
Every once in a while, and this is kind of the thing in American gun politics or what have you, gun ownership is, if you can buy it from somebody, apparently it's maybe legal, but it depends on if the sale is documented or not. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
it's all about the paperwork.
Yeah. So I don't know what the true story is behind that or how he came to possess it, but it was one that he didn't enjoy shooting, so he moved it on. But
right. Currently in production, the max length you can find is 40 inches. And that is for sea goose hunting specifically. 40 inches is ridiculously long. It's huge.
Yeah.
And that's like a 10 gauge stainless steel gun that is for a very specific purpose. Most shotgun barrel lengths range between 24 and 30. The standard length for a 20 is 24 or 26. 12s are 26 and 28. 28 would be goose gun range. 28 and 30 would be goose gun range for a 12 gauge. And then 30 and 32 would be for skeet. Now, those are for repeaters. For break actions, you usually have 28 to 32, depending on your use. And 32 would be more or less a skeet gun. The rule of thumb... Go ahead.
Okay, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, the rule of thumb is that 12s are 26 and 28. 20 gauges are 2 inches shorter, and any break action firearm is going to be 2 inches longer because a break action receiver length is 2 inches shorter. So they make the barrel 2 inches longer, so the guns are the same length, so they swing the same. And the length of the barrel, the shorter it is, the faster it swings. The longer it is, the slower it swings.
Yep.
And it's all personal preference, and you can put whatever length of barrel on a gun you want as long as it's more than 18 inches. So it's highly personable, or it's all personal preference and what you like. I shoot mostly 26 and 28.
Yeah. What's a sea goose, Mike? Is that just a Canadian goose at sea, or is that a different?
Yeah. It's Canadian geese and snow geese over the ocean because they fly much higher over the ocean.
Sure, yeah. I didn't know if there's actually like a sea goose. You know what I mean? I'm not up to speed on all the ornithological classifications.
No, it's goose hunting on the ocean. Yeah. Yep. And like I say, it's a lot of personal preference. Slug guns, which this is where we come into the rifled barrel conversation.
Sure.
If you buy a shotgun barrel for shooting sabot slugs, which are basically bullets, most of those are 20 inches. And they're a rifle barrel for a shotgun.
Yep. I have one for my 20 gauge.
Oh, there we go.
And I've shot many a deer with it.
And this is where we're going to get... Oh,
but
go
the
ahead.
sabot slugs are not the only slugs you can get for shotgun. But I believe they're the best at least for deer.
Probably. We're going to get into that too.
Oh, okay.
Later. The types of shotgun shells you can buy.
Okay.
Yes. So there we go. Right. And this is where we're going to talk controversy, and we're going to shit on the tactical people right now. Can you handle that, Nate?
Dude, I can handle it. I don't know how much later we have with. I'm looking at my cigar, but let's rock and roll shit on some tactical people, and then we got to talk about the different kind of slugs, right?
Yep. There we go.
And chokes. Don't forget the chokes.
And chokes. We got chokes as well. So modern shot cups keep all the bullets or all the pellets into a tight group for a minimum of 5 yards after exiting the barrel, no matter what choke you use.
Yep.
So these guys will talk about spread and different pellets for home defense. But for the first 15 feet, it's a bullet. No matter what, it's a bullet. So in your house, unless your house is 75 feet long, it doesn't matter what you use in that gun for self-defense because you're shooting a bullet. You can use 7.5 shot. It doesn't make a difference. There's no spread, essentially, in your house. Not enough spread to make a difference. And you're better off with smaller pellets than you are larger pellets because the spread's never going to be enough because hunting rounds are intended for 75 feet at the closest 75 feet. So why would you ever even consider anything else? That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't make sense. So all these barrel length things, the longer the barrel, obviously, the tighter that cup can be if you want it to be. But even the shortest barrel with the most open spread, you're still 15 feet before it's not a bullet. And you're at least 30 before it's a softball size, right? Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense. Okay, we're going to talk about fit. You can change the length of the pull and the rise and drop of the comb. That's very specific to the shooter. And that's part of why you need to try lots of guns and figure out exactly what you like, because you can list to the left or the right. You can list up and down. And you also have drop, which is the distance from your eye to the shoulder, and then your length, which is the length of the stock. So
I had a thought, Mike.
Yeah.
On the tactical people. Mm-hmm. This was in a James Bond film. He it might have been Roger Moore. Doesn't matter. He grabbed a shotgun from the lady of the house, and it was loaded with rock salt. Which is kind of a self-defense round. It doesn't kill, but it hurts and stings like a sumbitch. Does the rock salt have the same spread issues or distance requirements as the other loads?
No, it would not. No, it would not, because it's not going to be in the same kind of shot cup. It's not going to have the same design. Same with rubber. Okay. If you were to shoot rubber bullets, they're totally different.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clarification because I know there's other kinds of self-defense rounds that are non-lethal.
Yes. And never use those. Never use those. Anyway, so chokes. We have chokes that are rated for lead and steel. Older guns have a fixed choke. The barrels are typically modified or full, and those are for lead only. The old modifieds were for upland birds, and the fulls were for waterfowl. Most of those guns will be chambered in 2 3/4 inch or 3. And to use an older gun and an older barrel with steel is going to damage the gun, essentially. Yep. And guys do it.
The full chokes are also, or they have one beyond full, I think. But the full and the beyond full are also for turkeys.
Yes. So we'll get into it.
Oh, okay.
Cylinder choke is no restriction. Okay? And no restriction means that there's a 40-inch spread at 25 yards. Right? And cylinder choke is specialty. Nobody uses it. There are every size between cylinder and turkey. Turkey is 0.045 restriction. And a turkey spread is supposed to be a 40-inch spread at unknown yardage because it's so tight. A full is a 0.03, which is 40 at 40. So it's intended to shoot a 40-inch spread at 40 yards.
Okay.
So I'm going to guess it's a 40-inch spread at 50 yards for turkey based on the stats. And the common ones used for hunting are improved cylinder, which is a 40-inch spread at 30 yards, modified, which is a 40-inch spread at 35 yards, and full, which is a 40-inch spread at 40. You can get turkey, which is a tighter restriction. So think 40-inch spread at 50. And the chokes have to be patterned for your gun. This is just a guideline. If you're going to actively hunt a lot with a specific gun, you should pattern so you know what your chokes actually do. Sometimes the labeling is not accurate. And if you get aftermarket chokes made by, let's say, Carlson Company, they will be accurate. But the stuff that comes with your gun, Probably not.
Yep.
So you do need to pattern them to make sure you know what you're shooting. Here I will say that light modified is the unsung hero of the upland game hunter, because a 40-inch spread at 40 yards is 120 feet. Most people are not going to shoot at a bird 120 feet away if it's flying away from them.
No.
So you really don't even need a modified choke when it comes to upland hunting. Improved cylinder and light modified is usually good enough. I will use modified sometimes, but I prefer light modified for late. And what choke you use is highly dependent on the length of the shot, which is highly dependent on the time of year you're hunting. So earlier in the year, you want to use improved cylinder because the birds flush earlier, they're younger. Yep. Later in the season, there are more cagey veterans left. They're going to come up farther away. You're going to have longer shots. That's where your modified and maybe even your fulls come into play. And when you shoot steel, you size up. So a steel shot out of a modified choke will shoot like a full. It'll be a tighter pattern. So let's just use modified because everybody has modified. 40-inch spread at 35 yards is for lead. That is a 40-inch spread at 40 yards for steel. So you're going up 2 restriction sizes when you go from lead to steel. So if you're going to hunt waterfowl, if you want a modified choke, you need to shoot an improved cylinder choke because it'll spread tighter. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then anything more than a modified choke with steel can damage the choke and possibly damage the barrel because it's just they're too hard to be able to compress at the end of the barrel where the choke is.
Sure.
Do you have any questions about chokes?
No, I mean, it's one of those things where it's not committed to memory for me, but a simple kind of Googling of a guide for chokes.
I keep a guide, a picture guide.
Okay, sure. I mean, if you don't do it an awful lot and you're going to change from lead to steel, if you're hunting waterfowl, then you have to have something. Like, figure it out before you shoot it, right? Like, look it up before you shoot.
And they also make a specialty choke, which you mentioned before.
Yes.
That's rifled. So you can shoot a sabot slug out of a standard shotgun barrel, and it'll put the spin on the sabot like a rifled barrel would.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you can shoot it out of the smooth bore barrel, but put a rifled choke in.
Yep. So now we get into the shots. So there are 5 major kinds of shot. First is lead, which is the most common. And that's used for all upland. Most places, California's banned it. You're not allowed to use it in wetlands or public hunting areas where it's banned. Then you have steel, which is the second most popular kind. It's very hard, and it is much lighter than steel. So you have more pellets for the same size, but because it's lighter, you size up 2 sizes when you use steel.
Okay.
So for example, if you're going to shoot pheasant and it's later season, you would typically shoot number 4 lead at a pheasant. If you're going to shoot steel, you would shoot number 2, right? So back in the day, they used to have number 4 lead, and that would be called duck and pheasant load. I actually have a box from my grandfather before the lead ban, which happened between 1987 and 91. So as of 1991, you can no longer shoot lead at waterfowl. But before that, they would sell loads of number 4 for ducks and pheasant. So anytime you want to shoot steel, basically you just size up 2 sizes. Typically you increase your speed, and that's where that length comes in. So you can shoot 2 3/4 inch lead. You would go up to a 3-inch long shell with steel, 2 sizes larger, and you would shoot at 200 feet per second faster. So you shoot a bigger size at a faster speed, and you get the same downrange effect, essentially. And that's where when you start talking about the chamber sizes, a 3.5-inch chamber just killed off all the other ones, because even shooting steel, you can go bigger and faster, and you have the same result. So why would you do anything else? You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Yes. One danger with steel, and I will tell you, everybody, this. If you are in a wooded area, do not shoot steel. Do not shoot steel, because it will bounce off the trees and come back at you. Okay. So, yeah. There's also 2 other kinds of non-toxic shot, or 3 other kinds. There's bismuth, tungsten, and heavy shot. The issue with those is that they're extremely expensive. Extremely expensive.
I know I've shot some bismuth shot when we were hunting. We weren't necessarily hunting waterfowl, but we were hunting in a wetland area, so it had to be non-lead.
Right. So when I go hunting, I will carry a box in the back of my pickup with shotgun shells, or I will have a bag with my shotgun shells, and I will carry lead, and then I will get the steel equivalent, and I will have them both, so that if we go into an area where lead's not allowed, you toss it, you put in your steel, and you're good to go.
Yep.
Lead's preferable. It just reacts better to everything.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, are you going to talk about the plugs?
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about it now since we're running out of time. In the United States, if you are hunting birds, you are allowed to have 3 shells in the gun, including 1 in the chamber. So you're allowed to have 2 spare with 1 in the chamber. And a shotgun will sometimes be designed for only that number. Most of the time, they will allow you to put up to 5 because you can use them for deer hunting, and deer hunting allows you more bullets in the gun.
Yep.
So they have a little plastic rod. You put it in the tube that stores your shells, and it'll only allow you to put 2 in the tube.
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of times, though, pheasants will allow you to do the full amount. There's no restrictions, I don't believe, on pheasants.
There is. There is now.
Oh, there is now. Okay.
Pretty much
when
everywhere.
When I grew up hunting in Wisconsin and Iowa pheasants, it was, you could go full on that. So
sure. Yeah. We can talk about some shot size here. There's buckshot, which buckshot used to be used for war, basically. And double-aught 12 is a 30 caliber bullet. And the double-aught has 12 pellets for a 2 3/4 inch shell. Very convenient to remember that.
Yep.
Number 4 buckshot is a 22 pellet, and there's 27. When you start going into bird shot sizes, number 4 buck is the same as F shot, and it goes all the way from F all the way down to number 9 or number 12, depending on how you want to do it. And the smaller the size of the pellet, the more pellets per ounce, obviously, and the smaller game you shoot. So, for example, number 2 steel can be used on pheasant and ducks, whereas, let's say, number 4 lead is going to be used for late season pheasant, whereas number 7.5 would be used for very early season rough grouse. And that's all dependent, and you guys can do your own research. I actually have it all in my notes. I wasn't sure how much time we would have, so my notes are extensive. I am skipping a lot.
Yes.
So, Nate, do you have any questions or things that you think that I miss with chokes and with hunting weights? Because the amount of pellets you use by weight varies by species and things like that, and the speeds do as well. So typically lead is shot at 1,300 feet per second to 1,500 feet per second at birds. You can go all the way down to subsonic loads for skeet. And that's where that 12 gauge dominance comes in, because a 12 gauge will shoot 700 feet per second or 1,700 feet per second.
Okay.
And it'll cycle them both. Right? It'll cycle both.
Yep.
That's where the variety comes in.
The shotguns that the Germans want banned.
Yes.
I'm assuming they hadn't gotten to the point yet where they had chokes and different things.
No, so those guns were short barrels shooting at full restriction, which is no restriction, cylinder, not full.
Yep.
Cylinder restriction, no restriction. And they were shooting double-aught buck, which is 12 30 caliber pellets coming out the end of a firearm, which would spread out to 40 inches at 25 feet.
Okay.
Yes.
Just for sake of comparison to kind of like the advent of shotguns in usage in war, I suppose. But yeah, you said now they don't use them much anymore, except for maybe breaching, or if they're going into a house or structure.
Police will use them for breaching. That's very common use. They use rubber bullets. The police usually do.
Yep.
Yep.
But
and the buckshot is sold to home people, home like civilians for home defense. And it's a total scam. Your house is not big enough to need buckshot. Use birdshot in your regular ass shotgun and it will be the same. There is no difference. It's a bullet. You're just shooting a bullet that's big.
Yes.
Yes.
What's the, so I know they've got all these things, and this might be a little much for kind of the end of the episode here, but a shotgun versus a pistol with the pre-scored home defense rounds, penetration.
Yes. The biggest
That's
difference.
the concern with home defense is the penetration. You
penetration.
want to hit the bad guy, but not go through walls.
You're going to penetrate with a shotgun at home defense ranges. You're better off with a shotgun shell, because now, let's say you use a 12 gauge. you're using a 73 caliber bullet instead of a 45 caliber bullet, right?
Okay.
It's significantly larger. And it's going to make that hole much bigger on the back end because the second it hits that, let's say, material, that shot cup's going to open and the pellets are going to spread instantly.
Yep.
So that's where you get that big blowout with a shotgun.
Yep.
Right. And buckshot, by the way, is illegal to use for hunting now.
Okay.
It was intended to shoot deer, but it is illegal to shoot deer with anything other than a bullet. So, again, the buckshot's like a total scam.
Yeah.
They used to use number 4 buck for goose hunting, but that's illegal now too because it's lead. And that's where F-shot steel comes in because F-shot steel is the same as number 4 buck.
Okay.
Yep.
Good to know.
Yes, sir. Like I say, I skipped a lot. I know that we're coming to the end of Nate's cigar journey. So
we've been...
I could have yapped for another half an hour at least.
Oh, yeah. We're about 11 minutes past Nate's cigar journey, but we had to get stuff out.
I'm sorry, sir.
Ah, don't apologize. It's all good stuff.
Yeah. So if any of you have shotgun questions... drop us a line. I have been hunting my entire adult life and most of my youth life, and I have been made fun of by some people saying that I own a shotgun for every type of bird I hunt. Because when I was working,
sounds like the haters, man.
Haters. They are the haters. They are the haters. So, but I love it. I love bird hunting. Nate knows that.
Yep.
And I take great pleasure in. Hiking with a gun through fields, basically.
Yes. I like bird hunting too. It's it can be considerably more exciting than, say, deer hunting, depending on how you deer hunt. But
right, I hate deer hunting in Minnesota. I hate it. I don't like sitting in a stand. I like walking. Yep. I find it boring. But bird hunting is always good to me.
Yes, bird hunting is a good time because even if you don't see anything or flush anything, it's like, I get some exercise.
Exactly.
So.
And you'll see birds. You might not see game birds, but you'll flush birds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll likely see other wildlife.
Oh, yeah. You see deer get flushed. That's one of the big ones. And all sorts of other things. And everybody can do it. I know Sarah, she went on a pheasant drive years ago in winter, and she decided to pair up with another woman that was part of the hunting party, thinking, oh, this is the person I want to stick with. That was a mistake, because that particular woman was one of the hardest hunters in the group, and she always went to the roughest, most difficult cover, and Sarah was not happy.
Yes.
Anyway, cigar check. How did you like the Corojo?
You know what? I liked it. I already rated it. I feel it was not close to the other one. It's a good cigar. I think it's a good cigar. I don't think it's the same as the non-Fuma version of it. So I gave it a 3.75. I gave the Rocky Patel Edge Corojo a 5.5. So, a little bit less. It was good. It just, like I said, it was not as potent as the other one. I see you gave it a 4, which also is, that's within the range, right? It's a very good cigar, but it's not the Edge Corojo. So I think if I would have smoked this one first, my rating might have been higher, perhaps. But we smoked the non-Fuma version first, so that's kind of what I'm comparing it to. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I guess for like less than half the price of the full-on Edge, you can't really go wrong with any of the Rocky Patel Fumas, which we've said before.
I agree. I rated it as a 4. It is the same style of cigar, but less so.
Yeah.
It is not as good as the standard Rocky Patel, but it is still a very good cigar, especially for the money. The money proposition for the Edge Fumas, regardless of the style you get, is incredible.
Oh,
probably
100%.
One of the best deals you can get in the cigar market today. So if you see yourself a pack of these Fumas and you're like, oh, I have space in my humidor, buy it. Don't even think about it. They are good. Very good cigars. They're not going to be necessarily as good as the real deal, but they're still going to be way better than average.
Yes.
They're going to be a better proposition than a factory smoke, in my opinion, and they are the same price. So they are a excellent value proposition and very reasonable.
Incredibly reasonable.
Incredibly reasonable. It is shocking the price that they are, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, all things considered, even though this one was not as potent as the Edge version, the true one, this is still a very, very good cigar.
Oh, it's still spicy. It's still mild-bodied. It's a good smoke the whole way through. It's not the same level of spice. It's not the same level of potency. But it's still, by comparison from this to a different cigar, still a very good cigar. Hard to say no.
Indeed. Yeah, very hard to say no. And people might actually prefer the less potent version. I mean, Mike and I were both talking last episode about the nicotine buzz and the punch in the face. And the Fuma is kind of everything we liked about the other one, but with less intensity. So that might be your preferred one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Be sure to give us a like, a follow. Drop us a comment or give us a review on your listening platform. Check out our Patreon. We have some behind-the-scenes audio clips, stuff that did not make the final episodes. So we've got a lot of content out there and more to come.
Be safe, have fun.